The 3rd of May every year is observed as a World Press Freedom Day as declared by the United Nations General Assembly. The day is observed to raise awareness on the importance of press freedom and to remind government all over the world of their duty to respect and uphold the right to freedom of expression as enshrined under Article 19 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights and marking the anniversary of the Windham Declaration. The 2022 World Press Freedom Day, with the theme Journalism Under Digital Siege, highlights the multiple ways in which journalism is endangered by surveillance and digitally instigated attacks on journalists and the consequences of all of this on public trust in digital communications. The role of the media is to act as watchdog to protect public interest against malpractice and create public awareness. A former spokesperson of the Senate believes journalists are operating freely in Nigeria.
Ours is to support and create that enabling environment for a vibrant, innovative, and productive media industry.
However, despite the Freedom of Information Act in Nigeria that provides for access to public records and information to the extent consistent with public interest, but till date, it's still a Herculean task to get information from the corridors of power. Journalists' requests are usually turned down and sometimes results to harassment. The Nigeria Guild of Editors in a statement says it's still inalienable right of journalists to disseminate information, and in keeping with such can one say there is independent press in Nigeria. The statement adds that editors in Nigeria remain under threat despite the practice of democracy in the country. The common challenges faced by journalists in Nigeria includes paucity of information, lack of access to verifiable information and data, harassment by security operatives, attacks on media personalities, sometimes leading to death. The head of the European Union delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS shares his thoughts on press freedom.
Globally, we see more and more attempts to curb the space for free media, also by systematically undermining their credibility, and too many journalists have lost their lives or have put their lives at risk for having exposed inconvenient truth.
The latest UNESCO World Trends report also highlights some challenges being faced by journalists through surveillance and hacking, which are compromising journalism.
Well, joining me for more on World Press Freedom Day is the Executive Director, International Press Center, Mr. Lanre Arugudade. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, I know that the IPC has monitored and documented not less than 40 incidents, press freedom attacks on journalists, about 49 of them last year alone. You've also, since 2020, identified over 100 journalists and other media professionals who have been victims of surveillance, spying, harassment, unlawful arrests, kidnappings. The list seems endless. What would you say is happening to Nigeria's press? Can we say that they are operating freely?
Well, I think the Nigerian press is facing very tough challenges. We're facing very tough times. As a matter of fact, we're confronted by a number of obstacles which make it difficult for us to fulfill our constitutional responsibility of holding government accountable to the people. Part of this challenge is the fact that these attacks are coming from diverse sources. We can talk of the traditional ones, the problem with security agencies, but we also have attacks by political thugs. We have attacks by unknown gunmen. We have cases of kidnapping affecting journalists, and in some cases, deliberate targeting of media institutions during moments of crisis. What has become very worrisome for us at the International Press Center and other media development groups is also the fact that during situations of national emergencies, when even the government itself recognizes journalists as frontline workers, that does not translate into reality, because in the process of doing that, we still discover that journalists are either prevented or assaulted, including during elections, when journalists that were duly accredited, for example in 2019, were still prevented from doing their work. So for me, the situation is very precarious. Now we talk of 49 incidents and so on. These are the ones that are documented. One thing we have also discovered, and we discovered that in the course of working on 2 documentaries, which we're going to launch in a few days' time, one on voices from COVID-19 frontlines, and Voices from NSAS Frontlines, where we got the journalists to tell more of what happened to them. But we discovered that currently in about 1 or 2 or 3 states in Nigeria, journalists there just live in a state of fear. They only report what they think would not offend, the state government.
What are these states?
Yes, some of them said that, in fact, occasionally they get called upon by political thugs or security agents who tell them that, oh, we know where you live, you are a journalist with this organization, we know your movement, this is where you eat, this is where you do all things, we're watching you, mind what you report. So that is why, if you ask me, what is happening to the Nigerian press, I think the Nigerian press is really facing very, very tough challenges.
You mentioned those states. Would you like to keep them incognito? Or?
Yes, it's better. So that is part of the problem. I can't mention the state now because I'll be putting those journalists, in danger because they share this information with us and said, please, protect us. But then I think sooner or later we have to find a way of getting these, stories out, because for how long will this continue?
The government is of the opinion that the press is operating freely, and they've said countless of times, well, in celebrating this day, the word out is for government to support press freedom. How badly or better is our government doing this in Nigeria?
Well, you said the government is of the opinion, and that is at the level of opinion. But at the level of facts, the press in Nigeria is not free, because, facts is something that you can prove with evidence, and we have this evidence. We are not the only one documenting these attacks. Other organizations are also documenting. But what we are saying is that government has a responsibility to protect journalists, to protect press freedom, and we're not asking them to do the unusual. We have the ECOWAS protocol, for example, on democracy and good governance, which was adopted in 2001, to which Nigeria is a signatory. Article 1 of that protocol, Article 1K, says that freedom of the press shall be guaranteed. So when on the occasion of press freedom, they were saying that government should give effect to that by at least coming up with policy statements. So as we're looking at 2023 elections, for example, government could have a policy statement that says that the security agencies should not harass any journalist that is duly accredited by INEC and is able to identify him or herself. That is what we're saying. We also have the Declaration of Principles on Freedom of Expression in Africa, to which Nigeria is also a signatory. And Principle 20 also obligates government to protect journalists. So all these attacks where those responsible are alleged to be state agents, government should have a policy to say that they must be investigated, because we must be seen as partners in the development of this country. You can't strengthen democracy or have development where the media is in a very, very precarious state in terms of press freedom.
And hopefully Nigeria will move away from its rank of 120 out of 180 in the 2021 statistics.
That is why we're saying take these steps, so that next time when these statistics come, you will not say, oh, they are being unfair to us, the situation is different. We're talking of facts and not opinion. We
always appreciate your time on the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Lanre Arogundade, Executive Director, International Press Center. Thank you for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you very much for having me.